Hey y'all. So, Daniel chapter 6, the breakdown. We're going to get into the chapter context and then get into parts 1 and 2. I don't know if this is going to be one video or two. I'm going to try to go through it fast, but sometimes I be tripping up my words and it slows me down. But let's go ahead and get into the chapter context. At the end of chapter 5, Belshazzar, or somebody said, I was reading the Bible app and he pronounced it different, but Belshazzar, I don't know, I'm sorry, has died, and control over Babylon has come to someone identified as Darius the Mede. Darius organizes his terror under 120 satraps, and 3 governor level officials. Daniel is identified as one of the 3 high administrators. After jealous rivals fail to kill Daniel, he continues to prosper in his role. The following chapter begins an extensive record of prophetic visions. The first is a flashback to something Daniel saw during the rule of Belshazzar. So let's go ahead and get into the breakdown part 1. And let me make this screen bigger because I be trying to play myself by reading these little tiny font. Okay, so rule over Babylon had passed from the Chaldean king Belshazzar to someone identified as Darius the Mede. Daniel 5:30-31. Scholars debate who this person was. Skeptics claim no such person existed. Various theories have been offered. Among these is a man called who? Gubarus, or Ugbaru. A general under Cyrus. It's possible this man was given his position by a higher authority, Daniel 5:31, and then Daniel 9:1, and that the name Darius was used as a title. Ultimately, his identity is a biblical mystery not yet fully explained. Darius organizes his rule using 123 officials. Most are let me figure out how you pronounce this word. Hold on. Satraps, okay? They were to be supervised by 3 high governors. Darius intended to make Daniel the most powerful of those advisors, thanks to his outstanding skill and integrity. Daniel 6:1-3. The other politicians were jealous of Daniel's success. They scrabbled for some criticism with which to destroy him, finding nothing. Daniel was just as moral and upright as his reputation suggests. However, he is also known for his devotion to his God. Daniel 1:8-17-20. The schemers realized that Daniel will never compromise his faith, even if that means breaking the law. Daniel 6:4-5. The conspirators are said to approach Darius by agreement. The original text is not implying that all 122 came at the same time, nor does it mean that every one of the satraps and governors were part of the plot. Yet they certainly appeared in a group. They falsely told Darius that their plan was unanimous. Daniel obviously did not agree. Seeing many of his governors urgently presenting the law likely helped convince Darius that this was a good idea. In Persian culture, the king was the embodiment of the new law, and the law was never wrong. Therefore, certain official decrees could not be changed or overturned. Otherwise, it would imply the law was contradicting itself. Knowing this is a malicious trap. Those scheming against Daniel, ensuring that Darius makes his proclamation in exactly this way. Daniel 6:6-9. Daniel becomes aware of the new law and changes nothing. The law forbid prayer to anyone but Darius, yet Daniel refuses to stop praying to God. Amen. In fact, he continues to openly pray in front of his windows. Rather than fear, Daniel expresses gratitude and love for the Lord. As he prays, the same core group of conspirators catch him in the act of breaking Darius' new law. Who does Darius think he is? Little funky self. Okay, I'm sorry. Daniel 6:10 through 11. Knowing that Darius never intended to harm Daniel, the scheming politicians asked the king to affirm that his new law is irrevocable. As soon as he agrees that it cannot be changed or overruled, they point out that Daniel was caught in violation of that very edict. The king is anguished, but apparently is bound to carry out a sentence that same day. He looks for a loophole but finds none. Daniel 6:12 through 15. With great regret, Darius orders Daniel to be placed into the lion's den. Oh, see, sometimes you know stories, but you don't know when they pop up in the Bible. At least I don't. So some things just click. And I was just talking about this the other day. Amen. This was probably a modified natural pit or cave or an artificial enclosure. The lions were likely captured for this very purpose. The king follows all the required procedures, and Daniel is sealed in with the beast. Darius is so upset that he cannot sleep and has no interest in the pleasures of his throne. This suggests a faint glimmer of hope. In normal circumstances, the king would simply accept that Daniel was dead. Instead, he agonizes over the possibility that Daniel's God will provide rescue. Daniel 6:16 through 18. The following morning, the king anxiously hurries to the den and calls out. To his great relief, Daniel answers. Not only has he survived, but he hasn't so much has been scratched. Though Daniel was clearly guilty of breaking the law, his actions were never of any risk to the king, period. Nor were they sins in the eyes of God. As a result, he was spared. Daniel credits this rescue to God through the presence of an angel. This figure is not identified, though some suggest it might have been Michael, the archangel, or even a pre-incarnated appearance of Jesus. Michael and Gabriel was busy. As soon as I find them other angels' names, I'm going to start saying them too. But Michael and Gabriel, they was busy, okay? They was on assignment, honey. Daniel 6:19 through 23. Darius has now turned his rage onto those who conspired against Daniel. They suffer the fate which they'd plotted for others. Worse, following ancient custom, their families also condemned to death. My goodness, this was a step disallowed by the Old Testament law, Deuteronomy 24:16, but frequently applied in pagan nations. The lion's reaction proves they were not sick, weak, or disinterested. The new victims didn't even have time to land at the bottom of the pit before being torn apart. My God, I did not know that. Daniel 6:24. See, sometimes we don't know the full word. We just hear the little parts that the preachers be talking about or other people, and we don't study this thing out fully ourselves. That's important. Okay. The end of this chapter contains a decree from Darius celebrating the power of Daniel's God. Darius does not proclaim that Daniel's God is the only God, nor does he forbid his subjects from worshiping the many of the idols of Persia, Babylon, and the Medes, but he does command respect for Daniel's God, proving what impression this incident has made. Daniel 6:25 through 28. The passage continues a long segment recorded in Aramaic rather than in Hebrew. Daniel 2:4 through 7:28. The stories contained in that section are primarily messages for the Gentile people. This overlaps with the book of Daniel, shifts into prophecy. Chapter 7 records in Aramaic a vision which Daniel had seen during the reign of Belshazzar, but had to keep it to himself. The rest of the book contains prophecy written in Hebrew. All right, y'all, so we got a time. Come back for part 2.